to the Old Man Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Flint Anderson. If this is your first time with us today, thank you for joining us. And if you are returning, thank you for joining us and being with us again. If you don't already follow me on social media, please go look for Flint Rock or the Old Man Energy, either one. Make sure that you like and follow and subscribe to us here on YouTube if that's where you're watching us. That's where you get the latest updates and any of the shorts and the clips that have come out of the podcast. A lighthouse does not concern itself with the position of the ships. I don't think that quote requires any explanation, but what I'm applying that to today is a couple episodes ago, I spent some time answering my youngest son, Ashton's questions. It's been a very popular episode. And not only popular with the younger generation, but we've gotten a lot of feedback and guys just saying, hey, you know what? I really got a lot from that episode. Thank you. Those are questions I wanted to ask my dad, or my dad never explained it in a way I understood it, or whatever it was. But I've also gotten a lot of feedback from guys in my generation talking about how they wish they could explain things so succinctly, or they wish that it had been explained to them before they were out to move out on their own. And a popular theme among all of my episodes has been that there's a lot of men out there that want to be good men, and that there's a lot of men out there, young men out there, that want to be good husbands and fathers and leaders. I don't think any of us set out not to be good husbands, fathers, and leaders and men, but we don't feel like we're winning all the time. Sometimes we don't feel like doing it. Sometimes it's just, we just get depressed, we get down. It's every engagement I've had that's been a true one-on-one engagement, whether it's with a man I know, with the man I've just met, whatever, when we get past all of the barriers that we have set up and we get down to brass tacks, for lack of a better term, where we really start talking about these deep things, there's a congruence in everything that's talked about. It's like there needs to be better men in society. There needs to be more mentors in society. There's a severe lack of fathers in the home in all demographics, and it's worse in some demographics than it is in others, but it's a systemic problem across the board. But nobody seems to know what to do about it. Nobody seems to know how to handle this. Nobody, or if they do know, they don't want to step up and do anything about it. That, coupled with some of the most viral clips that I've got, and my most popular clips I've got, have been about men's struggles or men's mental health, or about our dads. The clip from one of my episodes previously about the two periods of time in a man's life. One, when you realize you can't beat your father at arm wrestling, and then one when you realize that you can. That really struck a chord with a lot of people. I've had a lot of interactions and a ton of conversations with people about that. One of the other ones is that guys don't reach out for help. And I made a couple of videos about this in different places, reaction videos and what have you. And it seems to be a consensus that we do not have any kind of a support structure as men in today's society. Now, you couple that with the younger generation being told that it's not okay to be a masculine man, that you need to be this weak, sniveling, crying. I don't know. You can use whatever, but you should not be a weak man at all. And I don't care what society or what anybody else tells you. When it comes down to it, the people that get things done from a male perspective are men that are not afraid to stand up and be that way. Well, it's really sad to me that we have such a disconnect. And most of us guys are so freaking stubborn that we won't drop those walls long enough, even to make friends, even to be, we'll be kind to each other up to a point, and then it kind of fades. And I've heard this repeatedly, not only from guys, but also from their wives, in talking and say, okay, well, they really want their husbands to get out there and have that masculine bond because they know that that's important. But it's the same situation every time. Once they could get them to talk at a social function, neighborhood function, or whatever, the guys will talk, and then it may go somewhere and it may not. It may be a golf game involved. They may go do something. They may go watch sports, whatever their hobby happens to be. But then after a couple of weeks or a couple of months, that interaction fades because those walls start to go back up again, because we don't really want to let people know that we're vulnerable on any kind of a level, because it's always, and not always, it feels like it's always been used against us for attacking, for manipulation, for whatever. It's not okay. So we've got my generation that knows that there needs to be something done about it. We've got the younger generation that's lost and searching for something that needs to be done about it. And in the middle, it's insanely difficult for us to have any kind of a long-term relationship. If those bonds aren't formed when we're younger, then they don't usually get formed at all. In talking with Orist about this, he was on the podcast a little while ago. He started over completely in the later years of his life and went out and intentionally sought out and made friends. But even at his age with men in his group, and he is a boomer, but he said that there was still some rejection there. There don't specifically, some of them came up to him and said, "I don't want you in my friends group, or I don't want to be friends with you." This is harsh. I mean, I'd rather have that harsh reality than not. But at the same time, it's the truth of our society and of our life right now that we do not bond well as men. I think this is also because there's not a huge rite of passage for men in America. We don't have, and I don't know, that may apply to other countries as well. I don't know that. I can't speak to that, but I can tell you, unless you're military or you do something for college or do something after college, the last rite of passage that you really have, and this is not a male rite of passage at all specifically, but is either high school or college graduation. There may be other instances can be looked at like that, but as far as a universal concept of, okay, you are now moving up from boyhood into manhood and being accepted into the club, there really isn't anything. I talked about how weird that was on one of my previous episodes for me, being raised to be a very weak man and then turning my back on that and searching and deciding that I wanted to be something more than what I was raised to be. And how weird it was that I was just automatically accepted because I was a guy. But again, I was seeking that out. Well, young men today don't have any idea how to seek that out. They do not. Guys my age and older, we have some skills, and some of us really believe that there's an issue. I don't know if everybody believes there's an issue or not, but when we really start talking about it, we are in the same boat, in the same society. So what do we do about that? How do we bridge that gap? Where do we go from these men that want to be mentors and can be mentors to these young men that need mentors, that want mentors? So we've got several issues with that. One, there's no structured process for that. Not everybody that wants to do that's necessarily a good person, so that's another issue. But number three, there's no framework for helping us get out of our own way, for lowering our guard. I know I mentor a young man through the Youth Challenge Academy out here, and it took the first 6 weeks just to prove to him that I was going to be consistent and do what I said I was going to do, to get him to lower his guard enough so we could have some real conversations. That 6 weeks in a closed environment was an incredibly long time with no reward. Well, that in an outside environment is almost impossible to achieve. Because of that, we just kind of fade away. And I really think these problems are all connected. So if you're watching this on YouTube, or you're watching one of these clips, there is a free group. It's the Old Man Energy group on Facebook, and we'll go ahead and put a link to it in the comments under this video. Go and join that. This is my attempt to start bridging that gap between people, to give men a safe space to go to where they can talk, they can get to know each other, hopefully form some of those friendships and move forward there. Now, I do have some specific programs that I've put in place as well for men, especially men my age, that want to start taking control of their lives and giving their families freedom and abundance. There's links to that in my bio as well. If that's something you're at, if you're at a stagnant point in your life and you're ready to grow and you're ready to give your family a better life, then I'm going to encourage you to go and check that out as well. There's no video, there's no hardcore sales pitch, there's no anything. The link takes you directly to the stat page and talks about exactly what I'm going to teach you inside that program. So these are my two solutions to that, in addition to giving back and making sure that I'm more mindful of my men that I'm mentoring, the young men that I'm mentoring, and trying to figure out some sort of a structure that we can operate on and inside of as guys to really move the needle forward and make things happen. The challenge we run into every single time is for young people, this is hard. It requires change, and they're being shown that everything is hopeless. And that this just pisses me off. They're taught that America is bad and that we are oppressors, and that the American dream, it takes away from other people, and in order to be wealthy and successful, you have to do it stepping on the heads or stepping on people lesser than you. None of which is true. While simultaneously millions and millions of people are trying to immigrate into America, whether it's legally or illegally. So if we really are this bad of a place, why are so many people struggling and trying to get here? So we have that. And then we have just the utter frustration for the older generation of watching our society crumble and erode into this quagmire of we don't even know what we want, who we want, where we want, what we're supposed to do, or even who we're supposed to be. And the frustration of watching that, or the frustration of knowing that we could give and provide for our family more if we had somebody that would just step down and teach us, or that we could learn from. I know personally, I ended up hopping from person to person or book to book, or okay, I'll try this system, I'm try that system, I'm try that system. Until finally I just drew a line and said, you know what? I'm done. This is the way it's going to be. This is either going to work or it's not going to work. But I haven't been afraid of failure for years. I've failed more times than I can count. I've lost everything several times. I've made some horrible, egregious mistakes over the years and always gotten back up and gone after it again. But again, we've been taught since my generation, in school, in life, in reality, that failure is bad, that mistakes are bad, that even going back to testing, if you fail a test, you don't do well. If you make mistakes, you're punished for your mistakes instead of learning from them. So now we have a senior generation, and I'm not seniors, I'm just meaning an older generation, that doesn't know how to fail or believes mistakes are bad. So, but we're in a position where we're going to fail and we're going to have mistakes every day of our life. We don't know how to get back up from that and restart again, let alone teach a younger person how to do that. And those of you out there that are good dads and good fathers and good husbands and have figured this out, then awesome. I encourage you to take what you know and pour it into somebody else. If your son or daughter has a friend that's just kind of lost, maybe they don't have a dad in the household, you know what? You can be that example for them. But we are so trained as a society now, especially as a society against men, that we won't even reach out to a child that's in trouble or that needs help for fear of us being accused, and rightfully so, of being a creep or something inappropriate or what have you. And as a result, these children's lives are not as impacted as they could be by good men. Kindness is never wrong. We should always lead with kindness, but kindness does not mean weakness. We have a very, very short period of time to influence our children before they're gone, before they start families of their own and lives of their own. And it's up to us to make sure that we do the maximum amount of good within that as we could. I did not do as good as I could with my children. I was young. And ultimately, the statement that's given me a lot of comfort here lately is I did the best that I could, but this is all of our first time through life. There's no law, there's no manual. And your parents and our parents, they were just doing what the best they could figure out too, because no manual in having kids, and it's all our first time for everything. There's no do-overs. There's no second round. I think this is why grandparents have so much more patience with children and with grandchildren, because we understand that certain things are going to teach them lessons more strongly than others will. And this is another reason it's critical from a grandparent perspective or from a grandparent age person's perspective that you use that patience again to help influence and help teach the younger generation. To share a very specific story, we used to get on to the kids all the time for either yelling or screaming. It seemed like we were just getting on to them all the time for having fun. And you were having too much fun. You need to calm down. Don't do this. Don't do that. Da, da, da. And as parents, I mean, that's what we do. Just want some chaos. Well, then as they get older, they come around and they've either learned to comply or they haven't, and they end up resenting you because you represent this authority figure that will just dominate everything that you tell them to do, even into adult period. Or the opposite is true, and you didn't do enough. You didn't give them enough skills. And I don't think as parents, we will ever really feel like we have given 100% perfect advice and direction the entire time. I know I made some mistakes with my older kids and all my kids in general, and I regret that. But as a general rule, I didn't do it on purpose, and I did the best that I could with what I had. And I wanted to make sure that they had a better life than they would have without me in it. And I really believe I accomplished that. I made all the skills available to them that they needed, but over the years, they chose to use them or not. At some point, you have to teach, you have to trust your raising for them. Well, what specifically does this mean as far as the story goes? Well, for me, choosing to raise children that were not mine was a very difficult decision. It didn't seem difficult at the time, but over years, I truly understood the ramifications of that decision, even to the point where one of my sons doesn't even want to have anything to do with that. He doesn't believe that you can care for the children that are not yours in the same way that you care for children that are yours. I happen to disagree with that. He has the right and the ability to figure things out on his own. The reason I'm telling you these things and these things that are going through my head is because, guys, if you're still listening to this at this point, and we're only about 15 minutes in, we have to be willing to talk about these things that make us uncomfortable. We have to be willing to talk about the things that make us proud, and we have to be willing to talk about the things that we may not be as proud of. I'm sharing this with you guys in hopes that there's maybe some young men out there that will understand it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're moving forward and trying to figure it out. That there's some men out there my age that realize, you know what, we're all struggling. We all have issues. We all have things that we're not proud of. We have things that we need to do, things that we want to do better, and we wish we could undo, but we can't. I want each of you to find a way today to reach out to your families, tell them you love them, tell them you care about them, show them, and then just sit down with yourself and choose to be better tomorrow than you were today. That's it. You don't have to be perfect, just better. Figure out what being a good dad, being a good man, being a good husband means to you, and make that your lighthouse. Don't let anything impact that. And you know what? If that changes over time, make sure that's really how you feel. And then it's okay to alter that perception, but you don't alter that perception because of anything outside of you. You alter that perception because of who you've grown into and who you've become. This is where I'm at right now. This is where I'm working towards right now. And it breaks my heart every day to see the amount of men that are struggling out there and that can't get out of their own way because we're all so fucking stubborn that we won't just talk, just admit what's going on. It is not a sign of weakness to talk with your buddies, talk with your pals, talk in a group about what's going on, maybe get some different input on your specific situation and then move forward. That is not a sign of weakness. The sign of true weakness is trying to figure stuff out on your own and watching your world burn around you without reaching out and asking for help or even admitting to anybody what's going on. Because ultimately, you've got to be the only one standing at the end for your family. And that is not a popular opinion in today's society, and I don't really give a shit. It doesn't matter. What matters is that in order to fix all of these systemic problems that we see from whether it's just political, whether it's religious, whether it's personal, whether it's family, whether it's whatever, all of it begins at home. And all of it begins with us being willing to stand up, draw our line in the sand, and say, this is the way it is. Whether you like it or not, this is me, and this is how I'm going to live. The more we do that, and the more we teach that, the more we stay present in the home, the more we as fathers are present in our children's lives, and more as we as husbands love our wives, guide our wives, protect our wives, and care for our family instead of running out at the first sign of stress. This starts to fix these societal problems. It starts at home. It starts with us. I can't speak to what happens on the female side of things, on my wife's side of things, what have you, because I have nothing to do with that. The only thing I control is what I do. And I believe that you put a father back in the house in every household in America who is a good man, who is working to be the best man that he can, who's there to be an example for his children, help care for his children and his wife, and take care of his family, that all of these other problems start to mend themselves. Guys, it's time to step up, do what you need to do, and become the man you were born to be. I love y'all. Peace.